السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. جمهورية إندونيسيا هي دولة في جنوب شرق آسيا، وتعد من أكبر الاقتصادات وأكبر بلد من حيث عدد المسلمين، وهي أكبر دولة جزر في العالم. تحتل إندونيسيا المركز الرابع بين دول العالم من حيث حجمها السكاني بعد الصين والهند والولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. لعل وسائل إعلام إسرائيلية أشارت مؤخرا إلى أن جهات سياسية رفيعة المستوى في دولة إسلامية كبيرة في آسيا ليس لإسرائيل علاقات دبلوماسية معها وصلت قبل نحو شهرين إلى تل أبيب، والتقت مسؤولين إسرائيليين مشيرة إلى أن خلفية الزيارة هي إمكان تطبيع العلاقات مع إسرائيل كما حدث مع دول أخرى في الأشهر الماضية، بيد أن الخارجية الإندونيسية نفت ذلك نفيا قاطعا، وأكدت عبر رئيسها وبرلمانها وحكومتها دعمها لفلسطين والفلسطينيين التزاما بدستور البلاد. وفي وقت سابق قالت القناة 13 العبرية إن هنالك دولة أعربت عن اهتمامها بإنشاء علاقات علنية مع إسرائيل، وهي الدولة الإسلامية الأكبر في العالم إندونيسيا. إذن هل ستطبع إندونيسيا أم لا؟ هل تتعرض لحملة ضغوط من أجل هذا المآل؟ وممن وإلى أي حد قد تصل تلك الضغوط؟ ولماذا إندونيسيا بالذات؟ وما أهمية تلك الدولة إقليميا وأن تكون من ضمن الدول المطبعة مع الكيان الإسرائيلي؟ هل الموقف الإندونيسي حازم وحاسم وقاطع لم يتغير ولن يتغير أبدا بحسب مسؤول إندونيسي رفيع، أم أن الأمور هلامية وضبابية وقابلة للتغيير؟ للإجابة عن هذه التساؤلات وأكثر يطيب لنا أن نستقبل من العاصمة الإندونيسية جاكرتا النائب الدكتور فضلي رئيس لجنة التعاون البرلماني الدولي في مجلس النواب الإندونيسي، نائب رئيس حزب حركة إندونيسيا العظمى جاريندرا وأحد مؤسسيه. أهلا بكم إلى حلقة جديدة من الداخل. معكم زينب صفار، تابعونا. The Honorable Dr. Fadli Zon, Chair of the Committee on Inter-Parliamentary Cooperation in the Indonesian House of Representatives. Welcome to Mina Dakhil from the Inside, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pure pleasure to have you always. Always welcome, sir. Well, Dr. Zon, Indonesia is one of the world's largest democracies and economies. What can you tell us about the quintessential importance of this nation in the regional dynamics as one of the founding fathers of ASEAN? And why is Indonesia important for worldwide politics in general?
Well, before proceeding, let me first extend my gratitude to Mayadeen Media Network for giving me this opportunity.
Always welcome, sir.
Yes. Allow me to explain more clearly that Indonesia now is the third most populous democracy, the world's largest also archipelagic state, and the world's largest Muslim majority nation. So it may read that our country in the world's largest democratic Muslim nation and the world's biggest direct presidential election with more than 800,000 polling stations set up in 2019 election. So Indonesia is arguably a showcase of vibrant conformities between Islam and democracy or modernity. In that case, yeah.
Right. Allow me to take you now to our part of the world. What does Palestine mean to you, sir, and the struggle for the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian rights?
Palestine means to me, above all, is to stand for humanity, justice, and protecting the lives of innocent people, including women and children. And it further means also that the conflict is asymmetric by nature between Israel, the oppressor, and the occupying power of the Palestinians. The occupied who are continuously being oppressed, the Palestinian, and occupation is the core issue. So the international community owes the Palestinian people that have persistently preserved for us how humanity, justice, and freedom are still alive.
Right.
They have steadfastly stood against the Israeli continued occupation and aggression that does not only warrant condemnation, but it's also a grave violation of international law that demands our action.
As a senior Indonesian MP, you said that your country will never normalize relations with Israel, confirming that the US offered Jakarta $2 billion to make such a move. Despite these ardent, persistent moves to allure Indonesia to normalize ties with Israel, you believe that such moves will not be successful. My question here, sir, why Indonesia? And why Indonesia can't normalize relations with Israel?
Well, when reports emerged last year that the Trump administration, or a year before, willing to offer Indonesia hefty financial inducement in exchange for formally recognizing the nation of Israel, our foreign minister responded by asserting that Indonesia had no intention to open diplomatic ties with Israel. Instead, the country will continue to exercise support for Palestinian independence. And also, I think in this case, for the cause of Palestinian independence, we are quite uniting in Indonesia, quite united.
But my question, sir, is why Indonesia, and why Indonesia can't normalize relations with Israel?
No, because
what's the importance of having Indonesia into normalizing the ties with Israel?
Oh, maybe this is also a very symbolic thing, because Indonesia used to be a leader of the Asian and African Conference in 1955 at that time. And then one of the discussion is about promoting independence of the colonialized state, for example, at that time. And according to our constitution also, it is obliged for us to stand against any colonialism that is carried out by any country. So it is from the mandate of our constitution, actually. And then, of course, the relation between Indonesian people and Palestinian, we are very close, and then always become an issue, and especially in the grassroots level, not only because of many similarities, especially about Islam and religion, but also because this is against human rights. And we need to fulfill this obligation to support the Palestinian independence as our debt to the Palestinian people.
Yes.
Because Palestine was also one of the countries that acknowledged Indonesian independence in 1945.
One of the first, actually, countries who acknowledged the Indonesian independence in 1949. Through various international forums, sir, you have stressed that the Indonesian president, the foreign minister, and the parliament are clearly against the idea of normalization with Israel. So we can say that the government and the parliament are in synergy to reject Israel's annexation of Palestine.
Yes. So maybe to conclude, all Indonesian, if I may say, almost Indonesian walks of life share their view to resolve Palestinian cause as follows, supporting Palestinian steps to realizing independence, restoring the centrality of the Palestinian issue in the international community, encouraging recognition of Palestinian sovereignty by UN member states and international organizations, and supporting the initiative of countries and the United Nations to revive the peace process, the peace negotiation based on what is already been acknowledged.
Right. Allow us, sir, to stop now for a short break. More into this very important topic, but after the break. إذن فاصل قصير ونعود. لا تذهبوا بعيدا. يرى بعض المراقبين أن إسرائيل استطاعت التسلل إلى بعض الشركات في إندونيسيا، ولا سيما في قطاع الاتصالات السلكية واللاسلكية والمعدات الحربية، بما في ذلك الطائرات المسيرة. النائب الإندونيسي الدكتور فضلي رئيس لجنة التعاون البرلماني الدولي في مجلس النواب الإندونيسي يشرح دور البرلمان والرقابة على سياسات الحكومة الإندونيسية التي قد تبني علاقات سرية مع إسرائيل أو لربما تغض النظر عن خطوة كهذه كمنح تأشيرات لحاملي جوازات سفر إسرائيلية كما يزعم، وما مدى صحة تلك الادعاءات؟
Well, I think the officials of the Indonesian government of course deny any contacts or cooperation between officials from Indonesia and Israel. In terms of, for example, business-to-business relation or buying military equipments, we don't have any proof until now, actually. So if we have, of course, we will question this to the institution that is engaged with Israel, because we don't have any diplomatic relation and ties, and also some other relations in this matter. So from what I heard from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and then also from other institutions, we don't recognize any relation in terms of trade or military equipment, buying military equipment. Definitely, I will question if we have any proof, or because sometimes it's
if you have something tangible and concrete, these might be just false news.
Yes, I think couple weeks ago there was also news that the Minister of Defense is also my chairman in the party. I'm the vice chairman of the Gerindra party. Claiming that news from the Israeli newspapers or news agencies, that General Prabowo was actually have a very strong relation with Israel and so on. So we deny all this news, and we call it as a hoax.
Right. Some Arab regimes, sir, have eagerly walked the walk of normalizing their relations with Israel despite internal wrath from their peoples. Do you believe, sir, that such moves, these normalization agreements, have been of any benefit to the Palestinian cause?
Well, if I'm asked what does Palestine really prioritize to pursue, of course, with no doubt, my answer is to meet more and fuller political support from nations around the world. Such stance should not recede whatever will be. So a hope for an independent, democratic, sovereign, and viable state of Palestine must be maintained. And since created on the stolen land in 1948, Israel has been exerted its utmost efforts to delegitimation Palestine as both a state and nation through many ways.
Right.
So all agreements inked since Oslo Accord in 1993 until the most shameful deal of century, in fact, have made Israel politically stronger than ever before. So I am on the view that normalization taken by some countries, including some Arab countries, perceive as Israeli landslide victory. I underline, so normalization is a blunder.
Right. As the Vice President of the League of Parliamentarians for Al-Quds, what can you say concerning the forcible ethnic cleansing taking place in occupied Al-Quds and the demolition of the homes of the Palestinians and the continued settlement building strategy overall?
So the League of Parliamentarians for Al-Quds is a foundation established in October 2015 at the initiative of parliamentarians who support Palestinian rights. So it consists so far of the membership of about 1,500 parliamentarians from all over the world. So I believe the role of parliaments and parliamentarians are more important than ever in support of cause of Palestine. So parliaments can ensure and put pressure on their respective governments to stand for Palestine. For the best example, the European Parliament has adopted a resolution supporting Palestinian statehood in principle. The compromise motion did not back immediate recognition of Palestinian state. However, that move at least has brought Palestinian cause more heard among European nations to closely observe violence by Israel against humanity in Palestine. So the parliamentarian network is very important, and we have worked through this network. I myself also submit last 143rd IPU in Madrid the end of November, an emergency item on the global humanitarian situation of the Palestinians. So we read a statement and we proposed this, even though we withdrew because it's also another emergency item from Africa about the vaccine equity. So we would like to also have solidarity with our African parliamentarians at the time.
In talking about the Palestinians, sir, what is the real plight and how can Indonesia help in this regard? To what extent can your country play a fundamental role in the inter-Palestinian unity, so to say?
Well, I think we encourage our government also to take the initiatives, to have a platform for all the stakeholders in Palestine to sit together, to unite all the efforts diplomatically, especially to work on the Palestinian independence. I think that is also one of the stumbling blocks of the United Front for the Palestinian independence. We would like to have all the parties in Palestine to be united. And of course, Indonesia have a commitment to support this. And we also channel this to our foreign ministry and also in many international forums. But I think so far they have to sit down together and reflect. Yeah, that's very important.
And you are talking out of your own experience as a nation, as Indonesia, that is very diversified and has a lot of plurality in it, but yet you managed to sit all of you together and managed to secure your own independence. You have relentlessly voiced out that extra efforts are needed to support Palestine amid also the current COVID-19 pandemic. Indonesia has had various strides in support of Palestine, especially in Gaza. And on the occasion of meeting with Mr. Ismail Haniyeh, you, sir, gave him a gift in the form of a kriss, as a symbol of Indonesia's consistent stance in standing together in the Palestinian struggle against the Israeli occupation. What is a kriss and why is it important to you, Mr. Zon?
Okay, the continuing outbreak of COVID-19, of course, really entails the double effort to ensure the cause of Palestine as a global concern due to unrelenting Israeli occupation and annexation. So when the outbreak exhausts almost global resources, both developed and developing countries the Palestinian struggle meets hardest challenge that has not occurred in the past decades or so. So Indonesia and its people remain committed to extending continued support to Palestine despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Two non-government organizations in Indonesia and actually many NGOs in Indonesia, in cooperation with the Indonesian embassy in Amman and also in Egypt, have raised funds and disbursed relief aid among Palestinian refugees settled in Jordan. Also, we built the hospital and so on.
Sure.
And we have also our parliamentary friendship group plans to pay an official visit, I hope very soon, to Gaza Strip.
Hopefully.
And the group will arrange a meeting with Palestinian parliament in Gaza. At the same time, wishes to deliver Indonesian vaccine for people in need. The Kris is a symbol actually for the Indonesian people. It's an Indonesian traditional blade which already acknowledged by UNESCO as the masterpiece of intangible heritage of humanity. And for us, especially in Indonesia, Kris is symbolized of integrity. Yeah.
In 30 seconds, sir, the recent Saudi-led assault against a Yemeni detention center and the killing of civilians. I need your opinion, sir.
Well, I'm very concerned and strongly condemn all forms of violence that occur, including an airstrike on a detention center in northern Yemen, as the death toll also rose to more than 80. Yeah.
Sure.
This proves that violence will only make suffering worse among the conflicting parties. So therefore, it is urgent need for global communities to immediately stop violence in Yemen and reassuming political settlement and ensuring the safe of the vulnerable people such as children and women.
Right.
And the UN Security Council should also boldly take action to prevent further violence and more casualties.
Right, sir. The Honorable Dr. Fadli Zon, Chair of the Committee on Inter-Parliamentary Cooperation in the Indonesian House of Representatives, thank you very much, sir, for always expressing your unwavering resolve in solidarity and support of Palestine and its independence. Always a pleasure to have you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome. ودائما الشكر لكم مشاهدينا الكرام على طيب المتابعة. للتفاعل أكثر تابعونا على صفحات السوشيال ميديا، وحتى نلتقي من كل فريق عمل من الداخل من كل الميادين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.